In late June, I took my first steps toward peak bagging the Adirondack 46 high peaks. This first outing on the Dix Range traverse would prove more challenging than expected, but would reward me not only with excellent views, but also with the first 5 peaks on the list. Here's what happened. Alright, first steps. Good morning and welcome to the Dix Range, where I have taken my first steps toward hiking the 46 Adirondack high peaks. I think the high temperature today is something like 70 degrees and it's actually closer to 50 up in the peaks, and it's supposed to stay clear all day with very little wind as well, so really just an ideal day for hiking. And just getting started with the Adirondack 46 list, it's my first time hiking here in New York, so this is all new to me. We're about 2 miles into the trail so far. We started at Elk Lake Lodge at the upper parking lot right at the trailhead proper. I'm expecting to get to the loop split near the Slide Brook lean-to in about a quarter mile. And from there, we're gonna hook right and begin to ascend the Macomb slide. At the top of the slide, there'll still be a little bit of ascending to do until we get to the top of Macomb, which will be my first peak bag in the Adirondacks. From there, it's under a mile to Carson Peak, and then we'll do a 2.2 mile out and back to Grace Peak. Once we tag Grace Peak and then come back to Carson, we do Huff, and then after Huff, we go up Beckhorn and then over to Mount Dix. From Mount Dix, we descend back down Beckhorn toward Elk Lake Lodge, where we finish the hike. Wow, look at that. Winter wren. Wow. Oh, that is marvelous. Oh, I can see Elk Lake where I started. Oh yeah, and I suppose that is the slide I have to go up. Oh, wow. That is excellent. A little chilly up here on the slide. There's a breeze coming down from the top. It's keeping me nice and cool. We're about halfway at this point. Calves are on fire. Whew. Look at that. Whoa. Ruby crowned kinglet. This is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful morning. The sun is now poking through the trees and feels nice and warm after a chilly morning in the low 40s. One thing that's been striking me is how quiet it is. There's just no sound other than my footsteps and the birds going extremely well so far as we head downhill on our way to Carson, i.e. South Dix. Another winter wren. That's where we came from. Nice. What a beautiful day. Oh. Carson Peak, this is it. Number 2. All right, that's Carson Peak. Peak number 2, also known as South Dix. Done. Carson is the 37th tallest mountain of the 46 at 4,060 feet. Time is 10 a.m. Right now I'm thinking that my ETA for completing this hike is somewhere between 3 and 4 p.m. depending on how many stops I take. But now we are doing the 1.1 mile trek to Grace Peak, otherwise known as East Dix. I think Carson is still in the process of being renamed, but East Dix was renamed to Grace Peak I think 10 years ago now. I think it was in 2014, so it's been Grace Peak for quite a while. We'll go tag that one for peak number 3 out of 5 for the day, and then we'll have to hike all the way back up to Carson, where we'll then turn right on our way to Puff and then Huff. Ooh, boggy section. Oh yeah, fuck. Oh no. Yeah. Look at this. Just. Ugh. That mud's a foot deep. Yeah. Up here on Grace Peak, you get a good view of the rest of the Dix Range. So right over there is Carson Peak, and then right behind it to the left is Macomb. So what we did, we climbed over the far side of Macomb from Elk Lake, came up over that, down and over to Carson, and down and up here to Grace Peak. We're going to head back that way, back up Carson, over Puff, which is a subsidiary peak of Huff, which will be tag number 4, and then we'll continue on to Dix Mountain and the Beckhorn. Well, the other way around, we'll hit the Beckhorn first. Okay, off to Summit Carson again. So we're at a little over 6.5 miles elapsed now. We got 2 Grace Peak, 11:15. It's 11:15 now. With any luck, maybe a little bit of effort, I can get myself back onto Carson by around noontime. Well, there it is. Carson Part 2. 7.6 miles. 3,500 feet ascended so far. And it's 11:48, so we actually beat our 12 p.m. prediction for getting back to Carson. So, that's nice. That's where we came from Macomb, and that's the way to Puff. I'm not sure, but I'm kind of assuming this is Puff. Starting to go back down. Wow. There's Elk Lake, Macomb. We're on Puff. That's Huff. That's peak number 4, and then the pointy boy behind it is Beckhorn. Right behind that is Dix. And I'm pretty sure that ridge is what we take back down to the lake. So based on the advice of previous hikers, I brought 4 water bottles with me, 3 1-liter bottles and 1 1.5-liter bottle, 4.5 liters total. There's not a lot of water sources once you get up into altitude in the Dix Range, and it's a pretty long hike. So there are dozens of stories that I found online of people running out of water before they even made it to Dix Peak. Some people had to bail, and I didn't want that outcome for myself. So most of the recommendations say bring 4 to 5 liters of water. I did just that. I'm on Puff Peak right now, just before Huff Peak. I still have a ways to go to Dix, and even longer still to get back down to the car. I've drank about 2 liters of water so far, so progress is about as expected. However, if I had only brought 3 liters of water, I'd be getting really nervous right now. But thankfully, because I have 4.5, I'm feeling all right. Long climb up the Huff. It's pretty in there. Oh, wow. Relentless. That's the word that comes to mind. Good grief. Am I supposed to go up that? Huh. Guess so. Then over here. And up. Oh, yeah. Oh my God, that breeze feels good. How's it going? Great. Damn. Straight back down, huh? Decent way down and then quite a ways back up again. So we just went up and over Huff. That was peak number 4. It was quite a challenge. Very steep to get up there, slow going. And then at the top, the viewpoint was pretty small, and there were a couple people already parked up there, so it kind of just walks by. We're at just under 9 miles, just over 4,000 feet gained, and we're headed down now to the call between Huff and Dix. And then we start our last ascent, another 800 feet or so up Beckhorn, and then shortly from there over to Dix Peak. I'm pretty tired, but I expected to be tired at this point. Looks like we're headed back up. Wish me luck. Oh, wow. Made a lot of progress already. The slow but steady method is working. I'm just taking my time, not getting ahead of myself. Ouch. Oh, look at that. Feel good so far. I think the worst is still yet to come, but I remain optimistic. Bicknell's thrush. Trees are getting short again. this is it. I think that's Beckhorn. One last push. Oh, shit. Okay. Why do I feel like it goes this way? Let's see where this goes. Absolutely nowhere. This is gonna be fun. Gee whiz. This thing's taller than me. Holy shit. I made it. Oh wait. Wow. So let's take a moment to recap. That's Elk Lake. That's where we started. Coming over to here, that's Macomb. You can see the slide we climbed up in there. That sort of bare area. Then we moved on over to Carson, which is sort of the dip between these two peaks. Then over to Grace, back to Carson, then over Huff, which is this larger one right here. Then we made our way all the way up here. Now there's just one peak left to bag, and it's right over there. Dix Peak, tallest one of the bunch. We'll go out and tag it, and then we'll come back here, and then we have to get all the way back down there again. Well, at long last, we've made it to the top of Beckhorn. There's just a short climb now over to Dix Peak, and then we'll come back here and begin our descent. We're at just under 10 miles done and right at 5,000 feet gained. We'll probably add a 10th or two going out to Dix and back, but we're pretty much done at this point with climbing. However, we do have one major challenge that we need to overcome before we get back to the car, and that is the descent off of Beckhorn, which is going to be extremely steep, pretty much all the way down to the lower altitude area. It's currently just before 3 p.m. With any luck, we'll be back down by about 5 or 6 p.m. It's a really long day, but it should give us enough time to have a little bit of daylight back at the campground. I'd love to take the paddleboard out onto Lake Harris for sunset, but before we get ahead of ourselves, we have one more peak to tag, and it's right over there. Beautiful. There it is. Boom! What's this say? 1942. Dix Mountain. Excellent. We made it. What a hike. Number 5, baby. Hell yeah. Pretty sure it's that. And then that. And yeah, I'm starting to get an idea of what's ahead. Okay. Okay. I'm already out of breath. This is comical. Alrighty. Oh, that moved a lot. 3:14 p.m. 1.76 miles to the Slidebrook lean-to. Okay. Oh. Okay. Okay, we are 15 minutes into this descent. We're already lower than Macomb, which I can see over there. Elevation is, yeah, just under 4,100, so we're making good progress. Look at this. So pretty. Oh. Just before 4:30. Been descending for about an hour. Elevation is 2,500, and we're just over 12 total miles. Legs are pretty much shot at this point, but it's leveled out a little bit at least. Oh. It's just after 4:30. We're at about 2,200 feet, and I can see Dix Pond through the trees. If you remember, while we were looking down from Beckhorn, there was that small body of water right at the end of the foothills. Well, that was Dix Pond. We're there now, so I expect the rest of it to be relatively flat. More uphill. Excellent. Back down, and I hear water ahead. Wow. How cool is that? It is now nearly 5:30. I've hit 14 miles. I was expecting to have gotten by the Slidebrook lean-to by now, but it's looking like I have about 2.5 miles to go total. So it looks like the total hike mileage is going to be well beyond 16 miles, closing in on 17. Which is more than expected, to say the least. Okay, I recognize this. Slide lean-to's right on the other side of this. Sight for sore eyes indeed. Finally back on familiar ground. Of course, that means there's still over 2 miles to the lake, but I'm trying not to think about that. Holy shit, we made it. I see cars. We finally made it. Final tally for today was 16.7 miles, 5,600 feet of elevation gain, and I did it in 13 hours, pretty much on the nose. That was a lot more than I was expecting. It was more mileage and more gain. I was expecting somewhere between 14 and 15 miles and closer to 5,000 feet of gain. I guess the only part of the hike that didn't quite go as planned was the distance from essentially the bottom of the descent back to the car. That lasted way longer than I expected it to. I think when I was at Dix Pond, my watch was telling me that I still had 5 miles to go, and I was thinking, it must have lost track, that can't be accurate. I was thinking it was closer to 3 miles, but the watch's prediction turned out to be correct, and it was a hell of a walk out of those woods. Another bit of a surprise was that Huff Peak was a more difficult tag than I expected. It was steep going up to the top, and it was steep coming back down the other side, so that really tired me out before even that final ascent up Dix Peak. So I ended up finishing around 6:30 p.m. It's a 45-minute drive back to the campsite here, so I was back here a quarter after 7. I had intended to take the paddleboard out, but it was really breezy, and I needed to prioritize dinner because I was so hungry. And I just finished. It's almost 9 o'clock. There's just no point. Back to the hike though, every one of those peaks was phenomenal in its own right. The Macomb slide was a highlight. The ledges before Carson were amazing. Grace Peak had this awesome ledgy summit. Huff Peak maybe I would rate as the worst of the 4. It had a really small viewpoint and I didn't even get to check it out because there were 2 people pretty much filling it up, and I was just trying to get mileage behind me at that point. And then Beckhorn and Dix Peak were unbelievable. A fantastic finale to the hike. Even the way down was fun. Rock hopping those ledges coming down off the Beckhorn was definitely entertaining, and there were a lot of spots through the woods that were really beautiful. So I'm really happy I did it, and that's 5 on the list done. My first trip. So really happy about that.